Hello, everyone. I'm Greg Smith, the Curriculum Coordinator for the BioNetwork Bioprocessing Center, and welcome to today's BioForum event, Opportunities for North Carolina Farmers and Growers to Produce Higher Value Crops. Our BioForum is scheduled to run from 10 a.m. until approximately 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time. Our panelists today are Paul Ulanch, the Director of Biotechnology Crops Development from the North Carolina Biotechnology Center, Dr. Kirk Francis, the Trait Knowledge Manager at BASF Plant Science LP, and Jeff Riddle, the Grower Relations Manager at Technology Crops International. In just a moment, I'll turn it over to them, and we will begin today's BioForum presentation. I encourage you to register for our July BioForum. More information and registration is available online at ncbionetwork.org. We'd like to remind our audience that if you log on to ncbionetwork.org/IET, you can take advantage of our free interactive e-learning tools that we have created. These cover a wide variety of topics, and we're certain that you'll find some of these that you can use. If you participate in social networking, we are also on Facebook. You may keep abreast of topics in the news, future events, and other interesting articles by liking us. Thank you. We're excited to have you meeting with us today, and at this time I'll turn it over to our first panelist, Paul Ulanch, who will give a brief introduction to today's webinar.
Thank you, Greg, and I'd really like to also thank the BioNetwork for their partnership to host this content that we're presenting today. I think we'll have future content as well. The objective of this and future BioForums will be to provide education about how biotechnology is impacting and improving agriculture. We're looking at how this may actually translate into opportunities for North Carolina's farmers and growers. Today we're going to touch upon some of these potential opportunities. And furthermore, we'd like this to be content, hopefully, to provide information to the primary educators of farmers, who are largely composed of North Carolina's Cooperative Extension Service, ag agents and specialists, North Carolina Department of Agriculture agronomists, and crop consultants. So they're armed with up-to-date content from both technical and industry experts. Today, we have some of those industry experts. We have Dr. Kirk Francis from BASF Plant Science and Jeff Riddle from Technology Crops International. The objective to bring them on today was to talk to you about some of the high-tech research that's currently going on to improve the future of agriculture, as well as some current opportunities that some farmers in the state may want to take advantage of with technology crops. I'm from the North Carolina Biotechnology Center, and let me explain a little bit about why we are interested in agriculture in the state. North Carolina is competing with many of the other leaders in the country and across the globe to be considered as one of the biotechnology powerhouses. And in the United States, North Carolina is ranked number 3 as having one of the larger biotechnology sectors. And I think this is largely looked at as based on our world-class R&D that occurs here in the state, both the academic and corporate sector, the skilled workforce that we have that's in partnership largely with the community college system and the university systems we have in the state to create a great workforce. We have a very supportive business community in the state to promote the development of this industry sector. And I would also like to say that we have the world's largest agricultural biotech industry cluster with many of the largest ag biotech companies actually having major research or even potential North American or global headquarters located in the state. So with this combination of biotechnology and agriculture, our hope is to involve the state's agricultural specialists, which happen to be our farmers and growers, so that they can participate in many of the activities and potential value that's being added from this industry. If anybody has any further information, they can definitely go to our website at ncbiotech.org/agbio. And with that, I'd like to hand it off to our first presenter, Dr. Kirk Francis.
Okay, thanks, Paul, and thanks for Greg for organizing everything. So happy to participate in these. I've worked with Paul for the last little over a year now on putting some of these together, and traveling around North Carolina and meeting some of the farmers and growers there and talking about biotechnology. This is a little bit different forum, so a little bit more convenient, but at the same time I don't get the feedback. So please feel free to send any questions to Greg through the chats if you have any comments while I'm giving the presentation. So I think it helps to give a little bit of background about me, so some of you can know a little bit about where I'm coming from. So I grew up in Iowa on a fairly typical Iowa family farm, and happy to say my parents still farm to this day. And one of the reasons that they are able to continue to farm is because of some of the advances in biotechnology and the convenience and efficiency that ag biotechnology has provided to agriculture. And so I can say that ag biotech for me has a very personal connection, as well as a scientist. I'm very interested in the biology and the genetics. And so I studied biology and genetics initially in Iowa. Eventually I moved to North Carolina about 15 years ago to study at North Carolina State University. And after a couple years at UNC, I took a position here at BASF Plant Sciences, initially as a scientist and now as a project manager. So a little bit about BASF. Actually, speaking to farmers and growers, I'm with the advantage that most of you are actually familiar with BASF. And familiar with at least some of the agricultural products that BASF makes, but really as a global company, BASF is the largest chemical company in the world, and it's one of those companies that many people have never heard of. BASF makes a lot of chemical products that you can find in many of your everyday household items, in many of your vehicles, a lot of construction material. But BASF has always had a very strong interest in agricultural products, primarily through chemistry. But a little over 10 years ago, or I guess maybe now, it was back in 1998, so I guess it's been 14 years now, BASF decided that it wanted to become a major player in ag biotechnology. So they invested rather heavily in developing the infrastructure so that as a company, BASF could be a contributor to ag biotechnology. They founded BASF Plant Science as a company that would have a global presence. And there are 7 research and developmental sites and a number of field sites that are mostly in Europe, or most of the research sites are in Europe and North America. The development sites are really all over the world, including South America, India, and in North America, Puerto Rico and Hawaii. Annually, BASF Plant Science spends about $150 million, which is actually a really huge budget for a company that's our size. We have fewer than 1,000 employees, and that just represents BASF's commitment to agriculture biotechnology. Okay, so I want to mention a little bit about sort of a change in the strategy of BASF Plant Science that was announced earlier this year. And BASF Plant Science refocused its business strategy to concentrate primarily on the North and South American market, and also to look ahead to growing Asian markets. Historically, BASF Plant Science looked very globally, but had a very strong interest in European markets. And recently, BASF has decided to end development of products that are targeted at the European market and focus primarily, as I said, on North and South American markets. Concurrent with this decision is very good news for North Carolina, because BASF has decided to move the headquarters of the Plant Science Division to RTP, North Carolina, largely in part because of the strength that you find in the ag biotech research community that Paul was mentioning earlier in his introduction here. So we still have a lot of sites globally, and we still have our research and field facilities located globally, but we now have a new focus that is really looking primarily at the Americas for product development, and with a forward view towards Asia. So the strategy that we have, we refer to as the Trait Technology Partner Strategy. Now, I mentioned BASF got into ag biotech about 14 years ago. Well, most of our competitors got into ag biotechnology as long as 20 years ago. And when BASF came to the marketplace, we found ourselves in an interesting situation where we had a lot of technology. We had a deep knowledge of a lot of plant biology and plant chemistry and plant genetics. But what we needed was a route to market. So we adopted a strategy where we would partner with existing leaders in the industry to get our top genes, our genes that will contribute to traits such as yields and stress, herbicide tolerance, and fungal resistance, and other products. We will get those traits into the germplasm and the seed of the major players in the industry. And this allows us to focus primarily on gene discovery, on the biology of what the biology of the traits that we're studying, and allows us to tap into the expertise and the market penetrance of our partners. So this slide shows what crops BASF is interested in, and I will highlight some of the crops that are important in North Carolina. You can see here in the graph on the left side of the page, the green bar represents the total harvested area globally, and the orange bars represent the portion of that global harvested area that is genetically modified crops. And you can see the largest crop globally is wheat, and there is no currently GM wheat production. BASF has partnered with Monsanto to begin to develop some wheat production, and I'll talk about that in the next slide. Also of interest in North Carolina is corn, and while most of the corn that is grown in North America and in North Carolina is genetically modified, less than half of the corn that's grown globally is genetically modified. So there's a lot of market potential to get traits out, to get valuable traits into the hands of corn growers. Soybean, also majority of that is grown in North and South America, and as you can see, a significant portion of that is genetically modified. And the same is true for cotton. These are two crops that have really benefited tremendously, and the growers in North Carolina of soybean and cotton know how important it is to have those BT traits, those herbicide tolerance traits, in their soybean and cotton. On the right side, you can see the partners that we have, and actually this slide does not include all of the crops and all of the products and all of the partners we're working with. But you can see, at least for the crops that are of interest to North Carolina, BASF has heavily partnered with Monsanto to get our traits into Monsanto germplasm. So while farmers, when they purchase seed in North Carolina, they're not going to buy seed from BASF. If you're purchasing seed from Monsanto or from some of Monsanto's brands, including DeKalb, you are potentially purchasing some of the traits that have been jointly developed by BASF and Monsanto when you plant those varieties. So I've probably said Monsanto many times in this presentation. I'll just a little bit note about the collaboration that BASF has with Monsanto. Monsanto is a very significant, very important partnership of BASF. And about 2 years ago, well, the collaboration with Monsanto has been going on for about 5 years now, and a couple years ago we announced an expansion of that collaboration, which would include wheat. In total, the overall R&D budget for the collaboration between BASF and Monsanto is $2.5 billion. So this is a huge commitment by these two very large, influential companies into getting valuable traits into corn, soybean, cotton, canola, and now also into wheat. So far the collaboration has been very productive. We see good complementation between BASF and the genes that BASF is bringing for evaluation and the genes that Monsanto is bringing for evaluation. And both companies are very excited about moving forward with this collaboration. So for the next, for the rest of the talk, I want to focus on 3 products that BASF Plant Science has developed or is currently developing. Now, unfortunately, these are 3 products that are not marketed in North Carolina, but I think they represent growth areas and they represent product concepts. And I will end this with a little. You'll be able to see some of the products that are coming down in the pipeline. These are all product concepts that could be applied to North Carolina, although these specific products are currently not available in North Carolina. But as different products develop, you will be able to find some BASF Plant Science in North Carolina. So the first product here is a drought-tolerant corn that BASF has developed jointly with Monsanto. And just a couple of days ago, it was announced that this corn will be marketed under the name Drought Guard. Currently, there are a few hundred farmers in the western drylands in Nebraska, into Colorado, down into Kansas, that are growing this corn this year. This is the first commercially available. Next year, it'll be available in a much broader area and larger availability. And really, the key for this product is this is a drought insurance product. This is a product that farmers will grow, and if they have a particular droughty year and their plants are atypically stressed, plants containing the Drought Guard technology will be able to perform better under those conditions. So we're very excited about this product. This is the first genetically modified drought tolerance product that is on the market, and you will see more of these types of products in the future. Different variations of these products targeted at different stresses, different types of drought, and in particular of interest to North Carolina, targeted for different regions of the world. The next product I want to mention a little bit about is what we call our Clearfield soybeans, or Cultivant soybeans, excuse me. This is a herbicide-tolerant soybean that was developed with a Brazilian organization, Embrapa. As anybody who grows crops and grows crops that contain herbicide tolerance technology are aware of, there's growing concern about weeds that are developing tolerance to a few of the herbicides that are being used in conjunction with crops that are tolerant to those herbicides. In particular, a lot of concern about glyphosate, but there are other concerns as well. This has driven the industry to really push forward to develop new herbicide tolerances that could be available in multiple crop species. And these would be used either as a stack, so you'd have 2 herbicides in the same plant, or you would use them in a type of rotation where you would grow one herbicide-tolerant crop one year with the appropriate herbicide, and the following year you would grow a different crop. And in the case of the soybean products, this is one way that BASF is contributing. We also have herbicide-tolerant soybean that is in development. I'm sorry, herbicide-tolerant rice that is in development currently. And we also have non-genetically modified versions of these products as well. But having the genetically modified traits in there gives a stronger phenotype. So very excited about this. This is a product that will be primarily grown in Brazil and in South American markets. In South America, they're very excited about having some alternative herbicide tolerance traits that they can have in their soybeans. So the last product that I'll mention a little bit about is called NutriDense. So NutriDense is a product that BASF Plant Science has developed. Currently, the NutriDense that is on the market is actually a non-GM type of NutriDense, so it was developed through breeding. And what NutriDense is it's a nutritionally optimized corn that is developed for the poultry industry, developed for the swine industry, and other varieties developed, a particular silage variety that is being developed for the dairy industry. And what makes NutriDense particularly unique is that it has been bred for increased levels of key amino acids that are important for poultry and swine production. It has been increased to have higher oil, higher total protein, and also of particular importance to the swine industry, and therefore of particular interest to North Carolina, is Nutridense has increased phosphorus availability, which results in less phosphorus in the runoff from the confinement operations. So in total, this leads to lower costs of rations and higher feed efficiencies for livestock producers. So Nutridense is a product that is not, as I mentioned, grown in North Carolina currently. It is primarily grown in the Midwest, but the next version of Nutridense that BASF Plant Science will be releasing will be a genetically engineered version of Nutridense with genes that modify these particular traits beyond what we've been able to achieve through breeding. And as we develop these genetically modified traits, those will be able to be introduced into different varieties of corn and potentially have a broader market area where they could be grown. So the animal feed industry is very interested, very excited about Nutridense, and if you are a poultry or swine producer or a dairy producer and you're interested in learning more about Nutridense, I encourage you to check out the website nutridense.com. You can learn a little bit about Nutridense, where it's available, and some potential opportunities for you as animal growers, and potentially in future as growers of Nutridense grain as well. So the last slide that I want to show here is our product development pipeline. This is showing on the right side of the screen. You can see these are products that are ready to launch, and as I mentioned, we have our drought-tolerant corn that is furthest along there. We also have the herbicide-tolerant soybean that I mentioned that is also very far along, about similarly. If you look back on the pipeline, you can see then the products that are coming along in joint collaboration with Monsanto is higher yielding corn and higher yielding soybean varieties. These are coming along. We're very excited about that. We also have some drought-tolerant corn. If you go further back in the additional drought-tolerant corn products and drought-tolerant cotton products and products that will increase nitrogen use efficiency in corn. So I think there's a lot of future potential for many of these traits having a significant impact for farmers in North Carolina. And BASF Plant Science is excited to be part of that biotechnology revolution that could benefit growers not only of North Carolina but of all over the world. So with that, I'll thank you, and I'll hand it back over to Paul. And if you have any questions, make sure you put them in the chat column there so Greg can capture those.
My name's Jeff Riddle, and I'm with Technology Crops, and I guess I'll go ahead and start. I thought maybe what I'd start off with today is share a little bit about our company, and then talk about a crop that we're developing here in North Carolina, or developing a new growing region here in North Carolina for, and then talk about how we're working with growers currently here in North Carolina, offering this opportunity to grow this crop. Let me start off first talking about our company. If you're not familiar with Technology Crops International, we're headquartered in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. We've been in business roughly 10 years as Technology Crops. Prior to that, we were known as Kings Incorporated, and we were part of a big British conglomerate, and we were in business well over 100 years. We currently have offices in Winston-Salem, where our headquarters is located, in North Dakota, in Canada, and the UK. We grow all over the world. At any point in time, we may be growing as many as 10 to 15 specialty crops. Many of our larger crops we have multiple growing regions for. Basically, our business model is we contract with end-use customers in a variety of industries to provide specialty oils that are derived from oilseed crops. Once we have a contract in place with our end-use customer, We then go out and find the best varieties, the best growing regions, and we'll contract with growers in that area to grow that crop. Once the crop is grown and harvested, we'll take possession of the seed, pay the grower, and then we take that seed and have the seed crushed to produce the oil. We refine the oil and then deliver it to our end-use customers. Just in the last 10 years, we've worked with more than 3,500 growers, contracted well over 1 million acres, and produced over 1 billion pounds of oil. One of the things that we take a lot of pride in is the majority of our growers are repeat growers for us, not just for that one crop, but often for some of the other crops that we introduce in that growing region. And just to give you a feel for some of the markets that we supply, there's several, but just a few of them. We provide oils that go into the food industry, into the industrial industry, into pharmaceuticals, nutraceuticals, and cosmetics. And you can see from this chart some of the products that our oils end up in. And some of the reasons our customers contract with us is we try and simplify the supply chain by making it smooth, by ensuring a quality product and a stable price. And another important thing that our customers are looking for is, as they look for natural solutions, they also want to feel comfortable on the integrity of the product they're receiving as it goes into their supply chain. So we offer up an identity preservation program to our end-use customers and work very closely with our growers to ensure the proper treatment of that crop throughout the process. So what is rapeseed? Many of you may be familiar with it. For those that you aren't familiar with rapeseed, it's been around since ancient times. It's primarily used for fuel and cooking oils. It has a bright yellow flower on it, and we'll see some pictures of it in a minute. And it's a member of the Brassica family. I'm sure you've heard of collards, cabbage, mustard, turnips. All those are in the Brassica family. Back in it was around 1980, some breeders took rapeseed and they took it up into Canada and they bred down one of the fatty acids in the oil called uricic acid, and they bred it down to less than 2%, and the intent was to make it a little safer to go in the food supply. And that new variety that they came up with, they trademarked that name and called it Canola, and that's actually an acronym for Canadian Oil Low Acid. So Canola, which you may have heard of and more people are familiar with, was actually developed from rapeseed, and it's just a different variety of rapeseed, one with lower uricic acid. What we're growing is more the conventional type rapeseed, and we actually grow a variety of it called HERE, which is an acronym for high uricic acid rapeseed. The two are the same species, and the only difference is one has a lower uricic acid and is typically found in food applications and also used for biofuels. What we're growing has the higher uricic acid and is in typically non-food applications, typically in industrial applications for high-end lubricants and slip agents. You may not realize it, but there's a good chance that you come in contact every day with products made from our rapeseed oil. Most of the plastic bags that you see at checkout have chemicals that are derived from our rapeseed oil used in the manufacturing process of those. Many of the tops on your soda bottles and water bottles are coated with it so that they're easier to open. All your clear wraps that go into food are coated with it. It's one of the only chemicals approved by the FDA to go on plastics that come into direct contact with your food. Also, and I told you most of it is for non-food applications. In small amounts, you will see it in some food applications. And if you look on the label of many of your peanut butters, you'll see rapeseed is one of the contents, and it's used as a stabilizer in that. And here's some pictures of it at different growth stages so that you can get a feel for it. This shows as it's emerging, one of our fields in flower, the crop as it looks in the field just before maturity, as it's growing in the spring, and then what you see, the picture of the seed, the end product seed that we crush to produce that oil in this gentleman's hand. And I thought I'd quickly run through and just show you what this crop looks like in the field in North Carolina at different growth stages. It's a fairly easy crop to grow. It's not very difficult at all. You usually plant it in September, October. It's a winter crop, and you want to try and get it established before it goes into dormancy in the winter. So after planting, you'll see that the crop emerges. And this is what you're trying to get to before you get to your first killing frost. You usually want a rosette of about 4 to 6 true leaves, and this is the stage that you know it'll be able to go through winter in. It's well enough established to get through winter, to go into dormancy and get through the winter. Then as the crop goes through winter, what you'll see, and you can see around the bottom of some of these plants, some of the leaves will turn purple. That's a natural process, and it's sort of putting its energy back into the rosette or the newer growth on the plant. But it breaks dormancy usually around March. This year was a little bit earlier because of our milder winter. And then it goes into a real aggressive growth period. What you see is out of the rosette, a central stem will start to form and elongate. Next, that primary stem will go into flower, and auxiliary stems will start forming. And then this is what the crop looks like in full flower. And we've had a lot of newspaper and TV coverage when people see this out in the field just because it's such a pretty crop that time of year. And you'll notice as it goes into flower, the leaves start falling off. In the spring, one of the nice benefits of this crop is it's a broadleaf, and it's such a thick cover that it shades out many of your weeds, so it prevents a lot of weed problems. And then as it goes through the flowering stage and completes that, you start to see the pods set, and they almost look like a long string bean, a real thin pea pod set with the tiny seeds inside. And next, this is as you start into maturity, the crop will start drying down and turning brown. And basically, most of the leaves have fallen off by now, and basically what you're left with is pods with seeds in them and stem. And then this is a picture as the crop's harvested. Typically, a harvester is going to go through and cut right below the lowest pod on that stem, and what you're left with is the stubble. So where does this crop fit in the crop rotations here in North Carolina? If you look at the top of this chart, you'll see the planting and harvesting times for corn and soybeans, And then where this crop is slotted is typically where winter wheat would be. Most of our growers typically plant this crop behind corn and in place of winter wheat, and then follow it afterwards with soybeans. One of the advantages of this crop is that you can plant a little bit earlier, and typically you can harvest a little bit earlier than winter wheat, allowing you to get into your soybeans a little earlier. Now this year was sort of abnormal. Our crop right now is finishing harvesting, but also is some wheat is being harvested right now. Typically we're a little bit ahead of that, but with this mild winter, I think wheat has moved up quite a bit this year. And one thing I also want to mention, you typically want to have this crop planted about 6 weeks before your first killing frost. Where we're excuse me, targeting this crop is sort of where typically the growing regions are for winter wheat, which, as you can see by this map, the primary winter wheat growing areas are eastern North Carolina, and then sort of west of Winston-Salem over to the foothills. Our recommended seeding rate for this past year was 3 pounds per acre for that seed, and we're actually doing some trial work which is being harvested now that we may refine that a little bit further. The crop itself will work on a variety of soils. We have a lot of this planted down in the Blacklands area, which have the high organic soils and the lower pH. Some of it going as low as 5.0 pH. When you get to the lower pHs, it might require some of the additional soil amendments, primarily because the lower pHs can impact the uptake of some of the micronutrients. But it'll work on a wide variety of soil types. Typically, you want to plant it on in areas in the field that it can keep its feet dry. You don't want to plant it in areas that might have standing water much of the year, or that are very, very damp or hold a lot of water. And, you know, the key thing is planting about 6 weeks before your first killing frost. And this shows, the map shows sort of what our targeted plant dates are. You can go as early as September 1st and then out to about mid-October as you go further east. Now, in working with our growers, some of the things that we try and do to make this program attractive to them, of course, pricing is very important. So we try and pay our growers a nice premium to grow a specialty crop. Typically, we try and set it up so they make a minimum of $100 an acre. Some of our growers this year are going to far exceed that. Just to give you an example how we come up with that, if you take a grower, say, growing winter wheat this past year, and say he did 60 bushel wheat at $7 a bushel, that would give him a gross revenue of $420. Our contract for this past year for growers paid $13 a bushel. We feel like an average crop should get you at least 50 bushels. So $13 times 50 bushels is $650. So you can see that in that case that earns you quite a bit more additional revenue. I will point out that in input costs we have 3 primary differences. One, our seed price is a little bit more expensive, and then 2 other things on your input. Typically, rapeseed takes a little bit more nitrogen than wheat. My understanding is wheat growers use anywhere from 100 to 120 pounds of nitrogen an acre. We recommend 150 pounds an acre for our crop. and then this crop takes a little additional sulfur. How much will depend on what your soil test says, but we usually recommend around 25 to 30 pounds of sulfur. Other things that we know that are important to our growers are to have convenient delivery points to deliver the product so that they're not tying up their equipment or their time, because when this crop's harvested, it's a busy time of year. Growers are also trying to harvest their wheat and also get their soybeans in as soon as possible. So what we typically do is we'll either lease local storage facilities so growers can deliver there. We've been very fortunate here in North Carolina to partner with down east, Purdue Agribusiness, to use some of their delivery facilities, and also they'll be crushing our seed to produce the oil. And then in western North Carolina, we're partnered with McLean Farms in Statesville as a delivery point, and then also be crushing our seed to produce the oil. This upcoming year, our delivery sites with Purdue down east will be Belhaven, North Carolina, Greenville, North Carolina, and Wilson, North Carolina. Now, some of the other things that we wanted to point out about this crop is it's another alternative crop to give growers for a winter crop to further extend their rotations. It helps break weed and disease and pest cycles. The crop itself has a big taproot, almost the size of a good-sized carrot, and that makes it very drought tolerant, and also it helps break up your hard pan. I mentioned a couple other things, is that the crop typically can be harvested a little bit earlier than winter wheat, allowing growers to get their soybeans in a little bit earlier. And then also another important thing that we've learned as we've grown this crop here in North Carolina is that some of those late freezes that can wipe out a wheat crop, our crop being Nebraska is very cold tolerant, and typically unless you had a very, very extended cold period down near 0 degrees, you would not kill our crop. At most, you might lose some of the flowers in bloom that particular day when you get the late frost, and that would cause pod abortion, but you would not kill the whole plant. You just might lose some particular pods that were being developed that day of that late frost. Another important thing that we do is we try and work to minimize our growers' risk. And how do we do that? First of all, before we ever develop a new growing region or launch a new crop in that growing region, we do our homework. And what I mean by that is we come in and we'll do trials. In the case of our rapeseed, we came in 2 years in advance. We worked with NC State and put different trial sites across North Carolina in the different growing regions. We had Salisbury, Kinston, Goldsboro, and now Plymouth. So we always try our crop out first to make sure that it'll be successful in that new growing area. And we not only do it on a trial plot that you'll see on a research farm, but we also go out a year in advance and we'll get growers to grow it on a commercial scale just to see how the crop performs, not only on a small research farm, but also on a commercial scale. Some other ways we minimize risk in our contracts, we offer full active guide coverage to our growers. And what that means is should you have a natural disaster that came in and wiped out your crop, all you would have to do is call us and we'd come down and verify that, and then the grower is released from his obligation of that contract. Now, not all specialty crop companies offer that, and the ones that do often charge for it. Ours is free of charge, and we do offer it. Also, our contracts are full production contracts. Many companies out there will tell you that we'll buy the first 1,500 pounds of your crop, and anything beyond that, we'll see what the market price is and decide if we'll buy it or what we'll pay you for it at that time. With us, we pay and buy every pound you produce, and you receive the full contract price on every pound you produce. Another important difference is we never speculate, and I'm sure growers here in North Carolina have seen that there's been specialty companies that have come to North Carolina and have brought crops, and some of those have speculated either on the price or on the market. And when that didn't occur as they thought it would, they got into financial trouble, and often the growers got stuck holding that crop. We never speculate. We always have a contract in place with our end-use customer before we ever offer a contract to our grower. And what that assures a grower is, one, that there's always a market for that crop they're growing, and two, that they'll always be paid, because we're under contract to provide that oil to our end-use customers. And then the last thing, and I think one of the most important, we consider our success only if our growers succeed. So we work very closely with our growers in providing them good information such as grower guides. We routinely come around a couple times in the year to look at the crop in the field with the grower, answer any questions, and offer advice to try and maximize their yield and ensure their success. This year we contracted about 4,000 acres, and you could talk to our growers all over the state, and I think they would give a great testimonial to how we've worked with them hand in hand to have a great crop this year. Some of our initial harvest numbers are coming in now. We've seen anything from 2,600 pounds per acre up to as high as 4,000 pounds per acre. So we think we're going to have a great success this year with the crop. And that's a little bit about our company, about Rapeseed itself, and about the program we're offering for this year. We talked today just about one crop for North Carolina, and that's Rapeseed. We also have another crop that we've had in trial, and this will be our first year rolling that crop out, and that's called high oleic sunflowers. We grow a couple 100,000 acres of these up in North Dakota, South Dakota, and Minnesota. About a year ago, we did some trial work up here in western North Carolina and had great trial results. There's a lot of interest from growers across the state to grow. So that's another crop that we are launching this year here in North Carolina. And we have others that we're looking at that are currently in the pipeline. So North Carolina will be a new growing region for us, not just for one crop, but for multiple crops. And we're excited to bring sort of these high-value new propositions to growers here in North Carolina to allow them to earn more income and to further extend their rotations. And I guess with that, I'll turn it back over to Paul, and be happy to answer any questions anybody may have.
Well, thank you, Jeff. Well, I want to thank both our presenters. We'd like to now offer opportunities for questions, and if you have any further questions, please submit them, and we'll make sure they get added. But here's a list of a handful of questions that have already been submitted. The first one is, what are the top genetically modified crops in North Carolina? And Kirk, I'll let you field this one.
So in North Carolina, the top, there's three important crops that you're going to find genetically modified in North Carolina right now. You're going to find genetically modified corn, soybean, and cotton. And in all three cases, the traits that are present in those are primarily going to be insect tolerance traits, sometimes referred to as BT. This conveys tolerance to different insects in each of those three crops. And then you're going to see herbicide tolerance, so the biggest two being Roundup Ready and Liberty Link. You're also going to see in soybeans in North Carolina, there's Monsanto has a product, Roundup Ready to Yield, which gives a herbicide tolerance to Roundup as well as a yield boost in that particular trait. So those are the three that are right now in the market. I can't speak to the penetrance of genetically modified crops in North Carolina, but I think North Carolina follows the national trend, and it's pretty high in North America.
And then, Kirk, the following question is probably addressed to you as well. What is being done to promote the most hardy corn when it comes to drought? And is this a biotech corn, and is it safe?
So a couple different strategies exist for drought-tolerant corn. There's one product concept where you would have corn, whereas conventional corn would suffer under a moderate drought. But a genetically modified product would pretty much ignore that drought, or potentially, for temporarily shut down for a certain period, or just alter the physiology within that plant so that it is not impacted by the drought. And so this is one product concept for drought. Another product concept for corn in drought is more like what I spoke about today with Drought Guard. And this is a case where if you're in a moderate, maybe even a moderate to severe drought, where you're going to suffer yield. You're going to have significant yield loss. You will have less yield loss when you have that sort of insurance trait within your crop. And so these are sort of the two different concepts. I will say that all major companies in ag biotech are looking at traits, biotech traits along this route, but it's also worth pointing out that companies are trying to breed for these traits as well, and there's certain advantages for a biotech approach, but certainly a breeding approach is also a very efficacious method for certain regions and for certain varieties of corn. And in terms of the safety, I'll just point out that before any genetically modified crop product is released on the market, it has to go through extensive safety training or safety testing. Tens of millions of dollars are invested by the ag biotech industry in ensuring that genetically modified products are safe to consume, safe for the environment, safe for animals. And this is a very important part of what BASF Plant Science does, and we're very focused and very committed on safety.
Yeah, just to extend on that regarding regulation and safety evaluation, that's both through the USDA, FDA, and EPA. So there's 3 federal agencies in the United States that evaluate that and make those final determinations, as well as those exact same studies are conducted in other countries for their own evaluation. So this is being approached from numerous regulatory agencies to evaluate that exact question. So let's move over to Jeff. Here's a question for you. Does TCI actually extract the oil, and can it be used in biodiesel production?
Well, our company typically will contract with somebody to extract the oil and refine it for our end-use customers versus having our own operation, although we do have a small extraction facility at our Canadian facility in Prince Edward Island, but typically we'll do toll crushes. So here in North Carolina, we're partnered with Purdue to crush our seed and produce the oil in eastern North Carolina, and with McLean Farms in western North Carolina. And yes, rapeseed oil can be used to make biodiesel.
Okay. I think you also just addressed the question in number 5. So those are the question is actually, are these the 2 delivery locations the only ones? So you address where they're located. Are there additional ones in North Carolina?
Yeah, there's actually 4 delivery locations: Belhaven, North Carolina, Greenville, North Carolina, Wilson, North Carolina, and those are the eastern ones. And then in western North Carolina, it's McLean Farms, which is in Statesville. And back to question, I guess 4, do plastic bags, other plastics with rapeseed promote biodegrading better? It's more used as a slip agent in plastics, making those bags easier to manufacture as they extrude them and bring them down the line. and then also it helps in making those bags a little bit easier to open. So not really for biodegrading.
Okay.
And I apologize. The question number 6, I stopped one slide short from finishing my presentation. My contact information and phone number is on, if I jump here to, this slide right here. These are numbers and address. You can contact us if you want to learn more about our company and what we do. This is our website. So sorry I didn't get that up there in the presentation, but that is to get further information. Feel free to give us a call. We'll be happy to answer any questions, and we have a couple pieces of good information we can send out to you.
Okay. And the last question we have here, and I've got some additional ones myself I'll ask next, but Kirk, this one's a good one for you. And I think this relates to the drought guard corn that you mentioned. Do you have an estimate of when that you think would be available in the state of North Carolina?
So for the drought guard product, I believe it is still being evaluated for whether or not the particular type of drought tolerance that it conveys, or drought insurance that it conveys, would be appropriate for the corn varieties that are currently grown in North Carolina. So I can't speak with certainty as to when or even if drought guard will be marketed in North Carolina. But if you go back and look at the product pipeline that I showed there are second generation drought tolerant corn products that are maybe about 5 to 10 years from hitting the marketplace right now. There's some exciting stuff in the pipeline, and the hope is that some of these second generation drought products will have broad application, not just in the western drylands, but in all parts of the U.S.
Yeah, I think to expand on that, when I've talked with other scientists about drought-tolerant traits, I think a lot of it depends on when does the typical drought stress in a certain region affect the crop, and it largely depends on the physiology of that particular plant. So if it hits it early in the life cycle as compared to later in the life cycle, the traits required to stave off that drought stress are going to be completely different. So it's very physiologically and climate and timing dependent. So it could end up being that, like you mentioned, they're still under evaluation. It could be that drought guard may not be actually the ideal traits to manage drought stresses we typically endure here in North Carolina. We're hoping, though, that maybe that crop could be of value. The last question, I got a few questions actually myself. I got one for Jeff. At the very end of your presentation, Jeff, you mentioned high oleic sunflower. And what are the advantages of having high oleic in there? What are the typical markets that would address? And when do you think, if this is successful in your trials, that could be potentially available for farmers to contract with you?
Well, the high oleic, our end-use customers like it because it is typically used in high-end commercial frying applications. If you look on a lot of your Frito-Lay products, that you'll see that sunflower oil is one of the contents. They like it because it lasts a lot longer than conventional oils. It has a higher smoke point and it imparts less taste to the food. So that's some of the benefits of it. There's numerous others, including health benefits. And then we've already completed our initial trials on a commercial scale, and we are launching that crop this year. So we're actually ordering planting seed. Many growers have already contracted with us, and growers we're ordering planting seed to deliver to our growers now. And the plant dates will be between June 15th and the end of July. We're also doing additional trial work down east. We'll have trial plots in Plymouth, North Carolina, and also Kinston, where we'll be testing such things as different row widths, fungicide applications, plant populations. So we'll have more data as we go forward on how it performs, not only in western North Carolina, but also in eastern North Carolina as well.
Okay. Related to that, you had a really good slide that showed an expected rotational plan when planting the high erucic acid rapeseed. How do you think this high oleic acid sunflower would fit into a rotational plan?
Yeah, typically what we found when we did some research on sunflowers here in North Carolina and the history of any sunflowers being grown here, we talked to people that had worked with both Mycogen and Syngenta before, who had tried sunflowers here in North Carolina. And sunflowers by themselves like heat, but what we have sort of here in North Carolina is not only the high heat, but high humidity. And what their companies found is if you had the high heat and the high humidity during the critical stage of oil development, it could impact your oil yield and your oil quality, being the high oleic in that oil. So their companies found that you either needed to plant really early in the year and harvest them before you got into the teeth of our high heat and high humidity, or you needed to plant them later so that you were having that critical stage of oil development past the teeth of our high heat and high humidity. So our director of agronomy looked at a 10-year weather pattern for North Carolina, and we felt like the late planting would give us the most room for error. So what we did is that's how we came up with our plant dates of June 15th to the end of July. So where we see this crop coming and would be behind something like winter wheat. In fact, our commercial trials were planted into wheat stubble. And typically that crop, our commercial trials, one was planted June, I believe it was June 26, and it was harvested September 26, and then the other one was planted the first week of July, and it was desiccated and then harvested the first week of October. So that's sort of where we see it in the rotation, as you could plant behind winter wheat.
Okay. We just had one more question pop up, asking how much acreage would you be interested in for a trial plot? Are you still looking for growers out there to conduct tests for you?
I think all our testing, between the plots trials that we've lined up this year, we're pretty well set. We did our trials a year ago. We have trials that are being planted this year, and all that's set. So I think we're pretty much interested for growers interested in growing on a contract basis. We're usually looking for a minimum of a 30-acre commitment, and we've had several growers planting several hundred acres of these sunflowers, up to 1,000 acres. Okay.
Well, I want to thank the two presenters today, as well as our audience, for attending. I hope this and future topics are really valuable to you. And also like to thank the BioNetwork again for hosting this discussion with us today. And Greg, I'd like to hand it back over to you.
All right. Thank you, Paul. I appreciate that. And thank you all to our presenters as well. As we wrap up today, just remember to take a moment to answer the brief survey that will appear as you log off. And your feedback will help us actually to plan future BioForum events. You can find out about our other BioForum events by visiting our website, ncbionetwork.org. Please don't forget to mark your calendar for our July BioForum, which will be presented on July 18th. Registration for this event is free and is available online at ncbionetwork.org. I'd like again to thank our presenters, Paul Bulanch, Kirk Francis, Dr. Kirk Francis, and Jeff Riddle, once again for their presentation today. Thanks also to the North Carolina Biotechnology Center for their collaboration on this event. And thanks to the North Carolina BioNetwork for making this presentation possible. And thank you for your time and your participation. This concludes our webinar, and on behalf of the North Carolina BioNetwork, thank you and have a great day.